welcome to yet another week of Behind the Lens. It is Mischief Night, one of my favorite days and nights of the year before Halloween, my favorite holiday. But we're not doing any kind of mischief on Behind the Lens today because we have a really jam-packed show. But we are going to be very bad. We're going to be so bad that we are good because we're going to be talking about bad grandmas today with the fabulous Randall Battinkoff, who joins us again. Randall, all of our regular listeners may recall, Randall was one of my very early guests on the show when talking about his film that he had directed and starred in, 37. Trust me when I say Bad Grandmas is nothing like 37. And, of course, it is also the final film of Florence Henderson, the beloved Carol Brady. However, let me assure you that her performance in Bad Grandmas is anything but sweet and saccharine Carol Brady. And we're going to hear from Randall and some of his memories of working with Florence. Also, the film's Bad Grandma director. We've got, who do we have? We have SRIKANT CHELLAPPA, the director of the film and co-writer, will also be joining us today. So we're in for, a real treat to find out about these geriatric grandmas who are, real badasses, so to speak. But before we get to our guest today, let me go ahead and welcome you to Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens. You can find my movie reviews and interviews in print and online 24/7 in the U.S. and abroad. But every Monday, you can find me right here on Adrenaline Radio, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, Pam's engineering today, and she's doing something, but I'm not sure what she's doing because what are you doing, Pam? Oh, well, this isn't working, so I can't see it. It's not working. Is it our first caller who called early? He called very early. Well, tell Randall to hold on. Tell Randall to hold. Well, know what? I'll tell you what. Let's bring Randall on now. Oh, it's the director? Oh, Srikant is not on till 11:30. 11:30. Have him call back because we have Randall before that. And we have Eric Pearson to talk about Thor Ragnarok. So, yes, have Srikant call back at 11:30. This is the joys of live radio. This is also the joys when we book with publicists who don't all who are responsible for wrangling their talent. Randall, I wrangle myself because Randall is a friend, so he will be calling at the quarter-hour mark, and we will have Srikant calling in at the half-hour mark to talk about Bad Grandmas. So as soon as Pam, she also answers the phones, people. So anytime you call up, it's Pam you're going to talk to. We have that situation rectified, Pam. All right. So then we're going to jump into, when she gets back to the soundboard, we're going to jump into Thor Ragnarok in theaters this Friday. This is the third in the Thor films. This is unlike anything you've seen from Thor before, though. The film is directed by the absolutely fabulous Taika Waititi. And trust me, if you haven't seen any of Taika's other films, I can't urge you strongly enough. Go back to some of his very early works. One in particular, Eagle vs. Shark. It is available on Netflix. It will give you a sensibility, an idea of his sense of humor, which really comes into play with the creation of Thor Ragnarok. Of course, we have Thor. Loki is back. We have a new villain named Hela, played by Cate Blanchett. Unlike any villain you've ever seen before. There are incredible effects. We get a lot of the Hulk in this film, which is so nice to see. We get, obviously, some new characters, one of which is the Grandmaster on the planet Sakaar. And the Grandmaster is played by none other than Jeff Goldblum. But to give us a little idea of what Thor Ragnarok is like for a writer to jump into. Eric Pearson, this is his first feature. He was working on the Marvel one-shots and also on Agent Carter. So he's no stranger to the Marvel universe. But Thor is a whole new animal. So take a listen to part of my exclusive interview with Eric Pearson, screenwriter of Thor Ragnarok. It is the adrenaline rush of the year. It is pure ecstasy.
I wish you could see me smiling right now. It means all I am is a neurotic writer who thinks that everything I do is terrible. So I'm finally starting to believe that people really like this movie, and I could not be more happy about it.
I am so in love with this film that, it is such a deviation from what we saw with the first two Thor movies.
That it is, a drastic deviation. And I think just in time, right?
I'll tell you, the Thor movies, they were, especially Branagh. Branagh is, in his films, he's very particular. It's very exacting. Everything he does has a theatricality and Shakespearean flair to it, which is wonderful, and it did well for setting the tone of Asgard and who these people were. But, because of the interplay with the Avengers, and when you're going toe-to-toe with Robert Downey Jr.'s, tongue-in-cheek self-deprecation all the time, we want to see that carried over, because how can you be Thor and interact like that and then go back to Asgard and be straight-laced and...
It's almost like you were in the room. Like, we talked about that a lot at the very beginning of just, like, this is... He's been around Downey for 2 movies now. You think that he hasn't learned sarcasm? Like we were talking about Thor's voice in that, it was that exact same logic.
It was so refreshing. And to have the film actually start out and right from the get-go with him hanging upside down and, being tormented by a fire god, it's hilarious.
That was the moment that I felt like I got on the same page with Taika. Because, like, I met him, and I just, he's such a unique guy with such a unique point of view and a crazy sense of humor. And we had just met, and we had met, it was like, hey, guys, meet. Now, right. And when I pitched him that idea of the chain gag, and he liked it, I was like, okay, I get it. I get what we're going for here. I will. If this can carry throughout the movie, then it's going to be great.
And great indeed. So, of course, I had to explore with Eric just how do you develop this, tweak this relationship with Thor, Loki, and now bring a new villain into the mix and capture this incredible humor that really escalates and brings a lot of what we've seen in the Avengers now into Thor Ragnarok. This is the first time we really see superheroes who know that superheroes are silly, and they know it, and they play with that, and it's delicious. So, clip 2, Pam. Now that you've worked with Taika, and to see where this humor has gone over the years for him on this explosive level, and how he visualizes the humor with color, with action, and so much of that stems from your script. And I'm still not buying what people are saying that 80% of the film is improv.
I'm glad you're not, because I don't think that's true. I think that there's a lot of fun to be had and improving to be done, and Taika certainly encourages that. But I mean, as the custodian of the document, I always kind of just felt a little, I don't know, put out by that. I keep hearing people talk about that. You cannot have a film with this kind of depth, this many characters and subplots occurring without a script. You cannot improv that. I agree with you. I'm glad that you see it. I'm so glad that you see it. I hope that everybody kind of can see it like that. It was hard work to get this thing ready to go, and we were on a real time crunch when I started working on it.
How much time did you have once you started working on it?
I started January 1st of 2016. It was a treatment in by the 28th of January and a full script by the 24th of February. They were shooting in July and basically starting over, except for, there was definitely things that they knew were going to happen. They were casting Cate Blanchett as Hela. They knew Hela was going to be the villain. They knew that the Planet Hulk kind of storyline would be involved. They decided to shatter the hammer. So there were things, there were signposts to guide, but yeah, it was intense. And I remember turning it in and feeling so relieved to have done it, and then realizing I hadn't read it. I turned it in, and then the next, because every day when I start, I would read the previous 5 pages to kind of get myself into a groove. And then I turned it in, and I went out and had drinks with friends because I was just needed some sort of relief. And I was like, I haven't read the whole script yet. I hope it's good. But then I started getting positive feedback, and once it was all there, I did a good enough job on the first draft, I guess, for us to get in there and start honing it, and especially working with Taika to get his very unique kind of comedy flourishes in there.
Mm-hmm. Something that really that stands out in here that I really appreciated is we really develop and see a different side of the Thor-Loki sibling relationship, but then you have to expand that sibling relationship and add Hela.
Well, to the first part, I have to really credit Hemsworth a lot for, because the Thor-Loki relationship is some of my favorite stuff in the whole movie. Mm-hmm. To be honest, like my first draft going, or my draft going into production, was feeling okay about it and feeling pretty good. And one day, Hemsworth just kind of pulled me aside and said, "Hey, can we talk about these scenes?" And he was talking about the Thor Loki stuff, and he very correctly pointed out that I was retreading some ground from the previous movies. They've had so many interactions that the audience has been privy to in Thor, Dark World, and Avengers, and he was right. He was that I kind of went into that rut a bit more, and he helped kind of. We had a couple of sessions with myself, Taika, Hemsworth, and Brad, the producer, to just talk about the relationship and really add in a level of kind of self-awareness. So it wasn't just more Loki, this is madness, kind of Loki tricks him and then he gets tricked. It was really great. It was one of those thank God he's the movie star moment, because not only does he look like Thor and he's a good actor and he's funny, but he's smart with the script and he helped us bring that relationship to the next level. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the Hela thing is just, we were almost kind of something that Taika liked to joke about from the comics when we were first sitting down and talking, is kind of this, subterranean layer of violence in the Asgardian society. Mm-hmm. Just, you'd open these comics and they'd be brutally conquering some, world, and then they'd be in a tavern joking about it over ale, and then the story would start. And it's like, well, what about those guys that you were just ruthlessly conquering? So having Hela kind of represent this, what actually built the empire of Asgard, and also wanting to give her a justified point of view was really important. Of this is how she was raised, this is what it meant to be an Asgardian to her. Anything else would be less than. We wanted to really find that kind of drive that put her in direct opposition to the, idealistic way that Thor had been raised in, we're benevolent, we take care of the 9 realms, we're kind of these golden gods sitting on the throne. Hela is kind of all the skeletons in the basement, literally.
Going back to Thor and Loki for a minute, what you did here is because, and I guess when Hemsworth got you out of the rut, we have all of those scenes where you think Loki is up to his old tricks again, but Thor's already onto it, so he throws the things at him, and he knows it's a hologram, and so we actually get to see superheroes that know that superheroes are silly, that they know their own backstory, and now they're having fun with it.
Yeah, and also, that's also just one of those moments that I'd love to point out is, from your movie star is talking about it, because we knew that there was going to be this scene where Loki's illusion visits him in the cells of Sakaar, and we were talking about it, and is kind of like, I don't want to say anything. Like, what do I have to say to him? He's screwed up my whole life, blah, blah. And I was like, well, what if you say nothing? What if you, and it was this moment, and he was like, perfect. So it was just a great moment of an actor being like, yeah, I'll take no lines. I'll take 0 lines because that's right, how it works for the character. And it was part of this mentality that I figured out in these conversations of Loki can't beat Thor straight up in a fight. He's not strong enough. He has to trap him. Mm-hmm. Well, Thor can't beat Loki in a conversation straight up. He's not clever enough. He has to trap him. So that kind of it's Thor's evolution in his relationship with his brother. He's not going to just let Loki lure him in and get into these kind of shouting matches again. He knows what Loki's trying for from the beginning, and he's got to find his own way to trap him, which he does a couple times in the movie that I think are really great. And I think ultimately too, they kind of force Loki to have his own little moment of growth that provides a helpful turn for the heroes in the end. Mm-hmm. This feels like the most authentic version of their brotherhood, mm-hmm. including all, like, not only the kind of the positive love and hope, but it's also like the pettiness and the lameness of being around your brother, and kind of like the dashed hopes of when Thor's I thought we were going to be together forever, mm-hmm. and he's having to grow up and say, no, I'm realizing now it's stupid of me to hold on to that childish dream. We're adults now.
And yes, they are adults, and you can hear and read more of my interview with Eric Pearson later this week on BehindTheLensOnline.net and a few other places. And please see Thor Ragnarok in theaters this Friday. It is amazing. I love this film so much. Well, right now, someone else I love so much and something I love so much is the wonderful Randall Battinkoff is with us. Hello, my friend.
Hello, Debbie Lynn. How are you?
I'm fine, my darling. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a while.
It has, and you've been so busy.
I've been busy.
You're always busy.
Well, not always, but I had a good little run here working on this movie.
This is Bad Grandmas. Oh, my. This is, you already know. I mean, I think that it is hilarious. I laughed myself silly watching this film.
It's a hoot. I know.
What did you think when you get a script like Bad Grandmas and you see you've got Pam Grier attached, you've got Judge Reinhold attached, and you've got Florence Henderson, Carol Brady in this script?
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe they got her. I mean, this is like the complete opposite of everything we know about Florence Henderson. You think, how can she do this?
Yeah,
she does. With a plum. I mean, she's incredible in the movie.
You know, it didn't surprise me. I saw her. She performed at a benefit for Stage LA a couple years ago. And she went off with this raucous bawdy number, the mama number out of Chicago. And she's got whips and, a bevy of guys. And she's, all in black leather, a whole S&M thing going on, and the whole audience.
Oh my God!
The whole audience was in shock, and she was eating.
That's her.
Up.
I mean, that's Florence. She's a firecracker.
So
she loves to push the boundaries, and I think she kind of exploits the fact that everyone thinks she's sweet little Miss Apple Pie. She's not that at all. I mean, she is that as well, but it's not the full package. I mean, she enjoys herself from day one. Actually, I showed up in St. Louis, I think around 10:30 at night. I got in very late, checked into the hotel, and as I was walking up to my room, I ran into Florence and Pam. I'd never met either of them before, and said, "Hi, I'm Randall. I'm playing sheriff." And they had a bottle of wine, and they said, "Hey, you want to come and come up to the room and party?" I was like, "Holy Toledo!" Sadly, I didn't. I was tired. I was like, you know what? Let's do it another night, which is a big fumble on my behalf. But those girls were ready to party. I mean, and have a good time. And when you showed up on the set, they were spot on. no line flubbing. I mean, just professionals through and through. But both really had an incredible zest for life. And, I mean, sad, so sad. It's so shocking that Florence, died so unexpectedly. And especially after seeing this person was full of vitality and energy. And, I think it shocked everybody.
Well,
that was the horrible thing that, obviously, is that you get so close to somebody like that and become, very close quickly, and then they're gone. So you just, every day is a blessing. You never know when it's going to come to an end.
Well,
but it's amazing that we have her in this film and to share what, you can see these last few months of her life, what she was like. It's all up on the screen, which is great.
Well, and we also get to see a different side of you. We don't often get to see you playing a role like Sheriff or Detective Randall McLemore. I mean,
that's true.
This is something it's very different for you as well. It's very tongue in cheek.
It is.
What did you, when you read the script and you saw what this role would entail? Did that jump out at you because it would be a challenge? It would be something new that you hadn't done?
I played some really silly characters early on in my career, like when I did Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I played Buffy's dumb boyfriend Jeffrey.
Yeah, and you were. Okay, let's face it.
So I kind of miss that. I think that inherently I love to play really far out characters. So anytime I have a chance to really go outside of the boundaries of my own personality, I love it, because you can just be silly and do kind of stupid things, and it works for the role. So for me, it was a great opportunity to try to sort of get back in touch with that silly side of myself that loves to play goofy characters, and this was an amazing opportunity.
Well, and the way that you go about, and the physicality that you put into the character, that really impressed me. Because anybody that knows you, anybody that's seen you off screen, you have stature, you have a nice gait, and here you get kind of schlumpy, and you're trying to put a swagger on that it looks fun. It looks funny, so it just adds even more to the character proper.
That's cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Srikant, the director, really sort of, he was encouraging me to keep pushing those boundaries. He liked it. He's like, I love what you're doing. Just keep doing it and go even further. Some of the walking, the garage, when I see some body parts, some of that stuff's really funny.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, we're not giving away any spoilers when we tell people that bad grandmas literally are for bad grandmas. They're trying to help a friend of theirs, and just inadvertently, people kind of end up dead. And, what do you do when you're a grandma? You get a saw, you get a knife out of the kitchen, and you cut up body parts, and you put them in saran wrap and put them in a freezer.
That's right.
Just very, very.
It happened. It kind of was just happening very randomly. They were just getting into more and more trouble, but they were doing. They were just trying to protect themselves from these horrible people in society,
and
who overlook old people and treat them like crap.
That's something that I really liked in the script itself, because there is that message, that underlying message. This is not just some kind of slapstick, farcical kind of film. There is that great message there about how seniors are typically treated.
I know. It's horrible.
But
they don't get enough respect. And they're powerful. They can be incredibly powerful. And yes, that's what I think the movie is. The core message is that you better respect your elders.
But
if you don't, they're gonna kick your butt.
Yeah,
and do worse than that.
Something that's really I found interesting within the film, the visual aids within the film that all of you are utilizing. It's just everyday household stuff that you just pick up, and it all becomes part of crime scenes that, unfortunately, somebody overlooks.
That's right. That's right. Especially moderately incompetent sheriffs who think they're very, very, very savvy, like my character.
Well, and of course, then you also get to play opposite Judge Reinhold, who plays, our leading con man, Harry.
That's right.
And he
That's
also
right.
just goes for broke with with the comedy.
Yep. He certainly did. He didn't pull any punches either. He was having a hoot.
That comes across on every level here. Everybody was having so much fun.
Yeah, we
with
did. We
this
had a blast. We were treated well. We had a blast. I mean, I actually shared a dressing room with Florence and Pam on occasion.
Oh God!
It was basically me, Florence, and Susie Wall, and Sal Eaton. So it was me and the four gals. Changing in front of me. It was crazy. It was wild. It was a wild ride.
Oh my God! And you have that distinction for the rest of your life.
That's right.
You were in.
No, it was a great opportunity. I couldn't believe it. I got the phone call. They just said, "Hey, do you want to be in this movie?" I was like, "What? You got the right guy here?"
Oh my God! But
yeah, it was cool.
But you also have something else of distinction on your resume, because you also played Hugh Hefner some years ago.
I did.
And I think yours was the very first time anybody played Hef on screen.
I think you might be right, actually.
Yeah,
I think it's possible.
It wasn't until much later when people started actually doing films and throwing in the character. But
Playboy, that's right. That's right. They were talking about doing a big feature film on Hef, and they just hadn't gotten around to it. I know Nicolas Cage had been looking at that part, and I ran into him at a car race, and he came up to me and said that he loved my portrayal of Hef. That was a highlight. It was like he had just won the Oscar the year before, and I was saying, "Oh my God, thanks so much, man."
But
yeah, that was an amazing part. That was a great part too. And you don't get too many parts like this. They don't come along too often. So you take them when you can get them.
And of course we lost Hef not too long ago as well.
Unbelievable. I know. Horrible.
I don't know. Is it everybody works with Randall and then we lose them?
Oh, boy. Well, I worked with Hef. My thing with Hef was 13 years ago,
That's
so you
true.
can't hold me accountable for that.
No, not accountable. But actually, it was amazing. Your cast in Hefner Unauthorized. You had Rebecca Herbst playing Barbie Benton. Rebecca, of course, has now been on General Hospital forever.
Yeah.
And you had Natasha Gregson Wagner, Rebecca Romaine.
That's right.
So you were in great company there with that. I remember when that TV movie came out, because it was just.
It's actually playing. It's playing in Greece right now.
Really?
And there's a European version of the film, and that's the one you want to see.
Oh, really?
That's the one worth watching. Yeah.
Okay.
So I know they're trying to get it out in the States here, but it just played on USA Network a few times.
Oh.
A few times. They would put it on rotation every few years. I think it's been a while since they played it last, but I know they're trying to bring it back here. So maybe audiences will be able to catch it here as well.
Well, and I think the time is right now that Hef has passed, and there's a resurgence of interest in him. So I think so. But something I want to ask you is, having come off of 37 and directing that as a first-time feature director, now you're working with Srikant, and Bad Grandma's his first feature film directing.
Yep. That's right. He did a great job.
I was going to say, how would you gauge, the experience and compare it to your own experience as a director?
Well, he was smart enough not to star in the movie. That was my first mistake. It's just so much. It's just so hard to act in almost every scene and direct at the same time. It's just taking on too much. It was an amazing opportunity, and I learned so much doing it. But I don't necessarily recommend doing that. So he had the luxury of just being able to direct, and he really had a great vision, I think, of what he wanted to accomplish. So I think a lot of the visual stuff that he does in the film is pretty impressive. We had some beautiful visuals in our film too in 37, but that wasn't really my number one priority. And not that it was his either, but just the visual palette. I think he really focused on and executed on.
Well, and your visual palette, the cinematography in 37, how much
amazing,
I love it. It's absolutely stunning. But
yeah, that's true.
And as you mentioned, with Srikant with Bad Grandmas, it's a very distinct visual palette. His is more about color.
That's right.
Whereas
That's right.
37, yours was much more about emotional tonal bandwidth.
And mood.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Wow, you're so astute. You are. You should review movies, Debbie.
You think?
You know your stuff. Yeah, you know your stuff. I got a new movie I'm prepping now. I can't really talk about it, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be amazing. It's
Now, are you directing?
I'm directing this one, and I'm just directing it yet.
I get to see it?
Oh, yeah. You'll see this one. You're going to love it.
Are you shooting locally?
To be determined.
If you're shooting locally, do I get to come on set?
Oh, of course.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Kidding me?
And I'll do all your Q&As for you.
I know you will.
But you've got two.
Those days.
You have two other films coming up. You've got Last Champion and Driver X coming out too.
That's right. I think Driver X is actually playing now in some festivals. It's going to be in St. Louis this weekend, and that's also we're premiering Bad Grandmas in St. Louis this weekend. So if anyone's in St. Louis, I know you can get some tickets and show up. Sadly, I don't know the name of the theater, but it's part of the St. Louis Film Festival. And Driver X, Patrick Fabian starring, will be playing as well. So you can catch me in two movies in St. Louis. And The Last Champion is a movie I did with my buddy Cole Hauser. Glenn Withrow, a very talented actor, also directed his first feature. And this is a powerful story, a great movie about a disgraced wrestler who becomes basically a coach to redeem himself. And I play the banker in town who sort of has him in my tentacles.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I play a bad guy in this one. I'm not a good guy in this one. It's pretty, but it's another really juicy part.
What is this? You're getting these really juicy parts.
I don't know. It's because I'm getting older. They're getting me finally out of all these preppy roles I played.
Well, that's because
someone wrote that I play these preppy types, but that's not who I really am. I mean, I went to prep school, so I guess that's how I got into school ties and.
But see, the thing is, you're so well preserved. You look so young. That is the problem.
So what should I do about that, Debbie? Should I just?
I don't know.
What should
I
I do?
I don't have an answer to. Would you rather just jump into really meaty roles right away, or would you rather stay well preserved?
I'd rather. A great question. You know what? If you could guarantee me the meaty roles, I'd give up the well preserved.
Well, you're definitely. I mean, and I really.
It's going to happen eventually.
And I really think by starring in 37 and directing it, I think that really marked a shift for you.
I think so too.
Because that really showed, directors, producers, what you can do. Your utter and complete immersion and depth of range in that film. It is one of your best performances. And I really think
I'm most proud of it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Sadly, not many people have seen it,
Well,
not many people in it, and it's on Amazon, and you can watch it for free if you're a Prime member. So.
Well, that's good to know. Now, did it ever make it onto Blu-ray or DVD?
It did. It did. It's at Target now. They're selling it at Target, and it was in Redbox for a while. Mm-hmm. And so it's gotten out there. It's playing in Scandinavia and in China and Taiwan, and Greece has just bought it as well. So it's in the UK and Australia. It's getting out there. Let's just say it's slowly getting out there, and people I read some review about some people who, actually, well, one reviewer said that they were contemplating suicide, and they saw 37, and they decided not to do it. So I was like, oh, you know what? That's enough. If I could save one person, that's good enough for me. I don't. And we had unbelievable reactions from audience members, as you may recall.
Oh, I know. People just absolutely loved it.
I know. I just wish we had some money to really push the movie. We just, sadly, I didn't get our distributor to really back it financially, so it's just sort of out there for people to find. But it's out there, and people do talk about it and do love it when they see it. So,
well, now that I know it's at Target, because I've been looking everywhere because I want to own it. I want to have it.
Oh, by the way,
yes.
Do you want to give away copies of it to your listeners? I mean, I have about 100 copies right now. If your listeners want to see the movie, why don't you give the first 100 people who call in or do a contest and you give away 37? I got 100 copies for you.
Why don't we do that? We'll do it. They can go to. I'll get something set up on the website, but also, and then everybody. They can email to Prodigy. They can email to Behind the Lens Online at Prodigy. Yeah, Prodigy.net. Yeah, I think it's BTL Radio Show or Behind Lens, or just go to the BTL Radio Show Twitter account. And whoever tweets about you being on the show today or retweets what I've already posted, the first 37 people we'll give free DVDs to.
Okay, that sounds good. And I'm going to send you a box of DVDs so you have them.
Well, that's so nice of you. You just want to get them out of your house.
No, actually, you know what? I got plenty of people who want them, but I'd love for you to give them to your listeners. It'd be great.
Well, and then I will get something up on the website so people can go there to find out. But yeah, we'll do it that way. They can go on to Twitter. They can go to BTL Radio Show. They can retweet. They can mention that they heard you today. Right. Or they can even do it on Movie Shark D. They can go to either one.
I love it.
And we'll do it that way. Now, I got to ask you, because we have Srikant on the other line. You want to stay on and talk? Do you want to stay on and talk to him?
It's up to you. It's up to you.
No,
it's your show.
It's up to you. If you want to stay on and speak with while he's on too, that's fine with me.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, Pam, can you connect? Okay, that's one thing I've never mastered is connecting multiple lines myself live. Okay, Srikant?
Yes, I'm here.
Well, hi, welcome to Behind the Lens. And a friend of yours is also on the line.
Oh, great.
Srikant.
I thought I heard him in the background. Hey, how you doing?
Srikant, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Are you going to be
coming in to stay with
us? Oh, thank you.
Long time. I miss you, man. It's been way too long.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Now, I didn't want to really crash this party, but Debbie Lynn said, hey, do you want to be on the call? So I said, hey, sure, but Srikant, feel free to kick me off anytime. You're the director.
Oh.
It's your show. I don't want to rain on your parade.
Well, now that begs the big question, Srikant, is how well did Randall take direction on the set of Bad Grandmas?
You know, here's the thing. I'm not a very nitpicky director, so I didn't really have any specific nitpicky things I really wanted him to do. I gave him a broad sense of the character I had in mind, you know, like a modern-day Pink Panther-ish type of character set in the South, and I let him run with it. And I think he did a great job, adding his own nuances to that character and behaviors that really accentuated it. I think I would have done a lot of disservice if I had actually given him more direction than I should have. So I think from working with Randall, I would love to work with him again.
Well,
yeah, likewise.
And you have veterans. You have an amazing cast on the whole. In addition to Randall, you get Florence Henderson. You get Pam Grier. You've got Judge Reinhold. This is an embarrassment of riches for you as a first-time feature director. It's an embarrassment of riches for any director. How did you go about, first of all, you're co-writer of the script, So where did this story come from, and what led you to this talented bunch to comprise your cast?
Yeah, certainly. So, even though this was my first directorial feature, I had produced, 4 other films before that. In some capacity, I was a writer, but most of them I was a lead producer.
Mm-hmm.
So I had experience working with, many actors. Probably not the caliber we are talking about here, though. I mean, this was obviously an exceptional caliber, and I was really lucky to have this opportunity. But I had some experience of working with actors in the sense of, working with my director and making sure we are getting the film we want. But in terms of this movie itself, I'm sorry?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. In this movie itself, I was writing this movie after I got an idea sitting at my ex mother-in-law's house out in the boonies of St. Louis, where she used to get together with her friends and sisters to play cards every Saturday night, and they're in their 60s and 70s, and I was thinking about that one day when I was watching them play. I'm like, these sweet old ladies could be murderers, and nobody would ever know. They're all church-going, nice ladies, and that gave me this idea of this Coen-esque style of storyline where I thought I would write a story where they indeed are murderers, but obviously I want them to paint them as very good kind of murderers, right? Where they're killing the bad people, not the good guys. So that's where the plot started, and I just kind of wrapped my head around, okay, how do I make this into a feature? So it was really organic from that point on in terms of how I came up with the idea and then wrote it into a script.
And then what led you to your cast? Did you know right away? Did you have an idea of who you wanted? I mean, it's very surprising that Randall is not the first person I would have thought of for the role of the sheriff. Florence Henderson is not the first person I would have thought of for Mimi. Yet your cast is perfection.
Oh, thank you. I think it was my casting director who did a fantastic job in many ways. But I did write this script with Pam Grier's role in mind. I've always loved Pam Grier. So I wrote the Coralie's part with her in mind, and I was lucky to get it. How often does that happen? It's very, very rare, especially for a first-time director on a small budget film like ours. On the lead character, I had a couple of names I had in mind. They didn't quite work out because, obviously we were shooting in St. Louis, which was not an easy commute for many of the individuals in that age group. So Florence Henderson was one of my top 5 choices, I would say. And then he read the script and loved it. And I was actually surprised pleasantly that she loved it. And I was thinking this would be a great counter casting because she wouldn't be the one you would think of as bad grandmas, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would think of her as a good grandma. And I thought that would be really awesome to cast her in the counter role. And that's how that came about. But Judge Reinhold kind of was also similar concept because he's generally been a good character, except for a couple of movies in the 90s where he did play it's kind of a funny villain.
Mm-hmm.
One of the movies with Danny DeVito. I forgot the name of the movie. But that came about, and I thought that would be a good name to have. And he hasn't been around much lately in the last probably decade, actually, or over. So that would be a good name to get back into the scene because I'm a huge Beverly Hills, cop fan, and I always liked him in those films. So I think in a sense I was really lucky. I think the script was good enough to attract the caliber of actors we are talking about here for a first-time, low budget director. But I think I just lucked out in many ways.
And of course, what led you to Randall?
Randall came. Yeah, to be honest, I didn't know much about Randall beforehand. So I was searching for a good, solid actor in that role. And the casting director really highly recommended Randall. And then I saw some of his pictures, and I saw, I've seen him before in movies, but I don't really recall him very much. And I thought this would be a great face and the role based on his previous role. And I just kind of trusted my gut and my casting director's choice in doing that. And I think like I said, I really lucked out in that sense because Randall brought so much more to the character than I could have ever written into the script.
Oh, well, I agree.
Thank you, Srikant. I appreciate that.
I absolutely agree. But I got to ask both of you, there's a great scene where Randall's character is up in a tree. Did you really make him go up in a tree?
He did. He did go up in the tree.
You really climbed the tree?
Of course. That was, Srikant, that was your idea, right? That was your idea.
That was my idea. Yeah, that was one of those Pink Panther-esque type of move that I thought would be nice touch. We kind of did that on the spot. It wasn't in the script. It was something we were thinking about. I'm like, it would be funny to have him do that because it would be something that I would expect, Pink Panther to do, right?
Oh,
I think I said, Srikant, are you sure about this? I don't know. I think I was a little hesitant, and you were like, no, just do it. Meanwhile, Debbie Lynn, she got back to me. She said, hey, Randall, great performance, but did you really have to climb the tree?
Well, remember, you were actually thinking about climbing the roof of the house next to it, too.
Oh, that would have made maybe a little more sense. But again, my character didn't have too much sense. He wasn't really that sensical of a guy.
I've got to ask both you guys because to do that, the whole tree climbing thing, sitting up in the tree, that was, in the moment decision to do that. How much improvisation was there within this film? Because as you know, comedy in and of itself is always very difficult to execute properly because of timing and whatnot. So how much latitude did you have for improv for moments like Randall climbing a tree?
I mean, Srikant was great with that. He would, if you had an idea, he would let you go with it. So I had one idea where the whole line where I say, "Where the hell did I put my car?" That was my idea, and it just popped into my head. And I said, "Hey, Srikant, I got an idea. I'd love to not remember where I put my car." And he said, "Okay, let's try it." And so we tried it, and it works. I think it's one of the best moments in the movie.
Yeah.
So much of the film feels very spur of the moment, but so natural. And the way that the ladies in particular, the way they deadpan everything, it just makes it so much funnier. Their comedic timing and their comedic skills, absolutely, I was so impressed with them collectively.
Yeah, they were brilliant. The ladies were great.
They're phenomenal.
Before you came on the line, Srikant, Randall and I were talking about cinematography and first-time directing, comparing his first directorial experience with 37 and this experience for you on Bad Grandmas. And something that is very notable that Randall brought up, and I totally agree, is the visual look of Bad Grandmas. What you and your DP, Chris Benson, have done with color and making use of color through Gypsy Pate's production design and art direction. How did you come up with the color palette and the color scheme that you did? It's really risky to pick a green like that and have it as so predominant within your film, number one.
Yeah.
And then lighting and lensing for that.
Yeah. No, there were very specific choices, actually. So I was influenced by this movie set in South Georgia. So I wanted, in summer. So I said, think of Georgia summer. Flowers in bloom, colors everywhere. So that was one big inspiration. There's a lot of flowers and colors because of that. The other thing that influenced me was having a retro look. I wanted to have a look where they would have lived in this house for 40, 50 years and never have changed the house, pretty much, right? So I was thinking about what does that look like? So that's more in the the 60s, 70s probably. A lot of teal and those rounded refrigerators, things of this nature. So I had a lot of that, and a lot of knickknacks was part of that deal as well. So that was a very conscious choice. I wanted to make the film look like it was set in the 60s and 70s, but it's actually it's today, because they're driving these older cars, really some of these classic cars. And everybody's driving a classic car in the movie, actually, pretty much, except for you, Randall. But there's, because,
I was supposed to, though. You gave away my car. You gave Judge my car. I was not happy about that. I'm still a little upset.
Okay. Well, that is true. Yeah,
that was my car. I was supposed to have the cool black car, and then all of a sudden I ended up with the white car. I didn't like it.
No, you would have done better with a black car. I agree with you, Randall.
Yeah, that was a decision I had to make for.
Judge wanted it, and that was the end of the story. Judge said, "It's my car. I'm the bad guy. I get the car." And
But you know,
that was the end of me.
having the bad guy drive a white car really would have added another whole tonal layer to the story.
Yeah.
We should have checked with Debbie Lynn. Srikant, we should have brought her in.
Yeah. So yeah, I could have maybe an older white car because the bad guy does own a car shop and he fixes the car. So maybe that or something newer. But anyway, the film is done now, so.
In the sequel, right? He's got a sequel going. Debbie Lynn, there's a sequel in store.
Is there a sequel in store?
Yeah, at least it's in my store. I don't know how well that store is out, but it's something I've been thinking about. Aftermath, especially with Florence gone. I wanted to actually spin that into the story too. Have obviously I will explain why one person is missing. So, but I do have a really good idea for a sequel that I think would be equally funny, or if not funnier. But I don't know. We'll see how this film does.
Oh, I can tell you right now, I would love a sequel of this film. And, with Florence's character of Mimi gone, if you're spinning that in, we could always have Randall Macklemore take up that extra space and be embraced by the remaining grandmas.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. I think that's something I've been thinking about. I just need to find some time to write that down, write the script down. But I've got a synopsis and all of that stuff ready to go.
Yeah. How did you approach the cinematography, though, with Chris?
Well, I was very much inspired by Coen Brothers' style of filmmaking for this film. It's very much with a Coen style of storytelling. At least that's how I wanted to get it out there. And I also was inspired by some of their older films where they use wide lenses, So I was looking at Roger Deakins' style of cinematography where he would use these lenses that they were like really wide lenses, like 18 and 24 wide lenses. And I did a lot of that in the film where I would get the entire cast in one frame, right? And with very few cuts. I mean, there are a few cuts in the film more than I would have wanted because I had to make the film work. To give it some speed. But I wanted to have a wide angle where you can see a lot in one lens, and a lot of lenses where the characters are actually so close in, so you can see their faces almost covering half the screen, but then the other half has people in the distance. So things like that, which are very much a Roger Deakins style of cinematography, where I'm using like an 18 millimeter lens, and the characters are really literally like 3 or 4 inches from the lens, actually, when we were shooting. So they were so close that they couldn't even move their face without hitting the lens.
Wow. No, I mean, it looks fabulous, and I do like the wider angle because especially for the interiors, because we get the entire sense of Mimi's home. You have them all sitting at the table, and you have the entire background of the kitchen from one side to the other. Everything is there, and that tells us immediately, just looking at that background, who this woman is. Her whole life unfolds in one frame. And I really like that rather than doing coverage cuts.
Nice touch.
Yeah, I didn't want to make this film a very fast-paced film. That was one of the things I was trying to avoid. I wanted to have some sort of a deliberate pace in the film, which I hope it came through. But I'm too close to the film to make that call.
No, I think your pacing is it's right on, it's spot on for this. You have some frenetic moments, but at the same time, you take into account in the execution of the scenes where there are action scenes with the ladies, it's naturally slowed down because we move a little, we're moving a little slower. The knees are a little sluggish. Can't get the finger in the trigger properly. And that you have a pause that's physically built in because of their performance movements. Yeah, and I really like that because it's a nice counter to what we're seeing with Macklemore, with his antics, or with Harry's antics. So it really, you strike a good balance there, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
I agree.
You know,
Nice job, Srikant.
Well, he hired
Chris
you.
Benson.
Thanks.
You know, he hired you to start with, so that was already a good job.
That's right.
Yeah, ultimately, my job is just to hire the right people and just sit back and have them do the work, right? that's my style. I'm like, that worked really well, but I got to make sure I have the right people. In this case, I think I totally left out with, you know, what phenomenal performances by ladies and by Randall. You know, that was really, really nice.
You know,
to have that opportunity.
You know, because I have both of you together, and, you know, Randall, you've directed one feature film. Srikant, you've now directed one feature film. I'm curious, because so many filmmakers and industry people do listen to the show. I'd like to ask each of you about what would be the greatest lesson you each learned as a first-time feature filmmaker, director, that if you had to impart some wisdom on somebody else following that same path, what lesson did each of you learn that you would pass along?
You got to build a team of people that you trust and like. I think that would be the most important thing. You really kind of get to know your team before you jump in and make a movie, and really just know that you're going to be spending years of your life working on the project, so you better really love the subject matter, because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble.
Mm-hmm. And what about for you, Srikant?
You know, my thing is, I read this somewhere, and I followed this, and it really helped me. Was casting is basically more or less half or more of the film, right? And if you spend enough time working on the casting, your film will take care of itself in many ways. So I spent a lot of time casting. I took 6 months to cast this film with many actors and talking to, and even the backgrounds and extras and, you know, the other smaller characters I have. I spent a lot of time. I probably went through hundreds of people actually for some of these smaller roles, because I wanted to have that look that I wanted in the film, or at least that, or the performance or the nuances they will give in the film. To me, if you do that right, the film gets so much more from these actors that you can never possibly write or direct on the screen, on the set. The other thing that I do a lot of, and I've done it in my other films in the past, is really making sure the script is about as tight as you can get before you jump into the film. You know, a lot of first-time directors get into the film with like a second or third version of their script, and I mean, I think that's a really bad idea. You know, you really should tighten your script to the extent you can. You know, I think mine was like a 17th rewrite before I jumped into this film.
Wow.
For this one.
Well, now for you, being an actor, Randall, how, based on what Srikant is saying about the script and having it tight, is that something that you like and appreciate as an actor?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you don't want to really have to be figuring out the script when you're shooting. Oftentimes, it can be improved upon. Actors, of course, have their own inputs, and when you're shooting, it can come up, and I think a good director is going to be open to ideas. But for the most part, I mean, you want, if you can get to the place where everybody's on board with the script and loves where it's at, then there's just one less thing to worry about, which is having to change it and make it better. The performances can add so much, and there are nuances that are going to show up and surprises that are going to make it more special. But if you're working the script itself out and the story out while you're shooting, you got a problem.
Mm. Well, gentlemen, we are almost out of time today. This has been just so much fun. I mean, I love Bad Grandmas so much. I admit I watched it twice already. I have to.
Wow.
I have to see it again.
Cool.
It's not often when you get a movie that you can sit there and just laugh and have a good time with. And you really can with Bad Grandmas. And, of course, just seeing Florence Henderson in her final role, is more than worth the price of admission.
I know.
As far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
now, will
Absolutely.
either of you be, because Randall mentioned the film is, let's see, it's opening this Friday. It's going to be in St. Louis. Is anybody since that's where you shot, will either of you be there for the opening on Friday?
Yeah, I will be. Actually, it's on Thursday.
Thursday night?
Not Friday. Thursday night, yeah. That's actually Pam Grier is opening the film. She will be there in person, and I will be there with her and a few of the other actors. But Randall, I don't know. Did you say you were coming, or you can't?
No, I can't. Sadly, I can't make it. But I'm gonna be in L.A. for the L.A. opening on the 10th.
Oh, how?
Okay, perfect.
So you guys got everything covered. Do you know where it's going to open on the 10th in L.A., Randall?
At the Lemley, the Music Box, same theater that 37
Okay.
opened in.
Well, then anybody that wants to see Randall in Bad Grandmas in L.A., Lemley Music Hall on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills on the 10th. If you're in St. Louis, Premier SRIKANT and Pam Grier will be there. And this is a film that everybody needs to see, just because it will make you laugh and it will make you forget everything else in the world. And it's a little indie film and it needs lots and lots of love.
That's right. Thank you so much, Debbie Lynn.
Thank you.
Gentlemen,
Thank you very much.
thank you. And again, Randall and I are teaming up. He's going to give away 37 copies of his film, 37, that he directed and stars in. And I'm going to have all that information out. You can go to BTL Radio Show or Movie Shark D on Twitter and win a copy. So I know you will both come back on the show again. Yes?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And
of course.
And I want my sequel, Srikant. I want my sequel.
Okay. All right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, listeners.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Debbie.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Srikant.
Bye.
And that was Randall Battinkoff and Srikant Chellappa. Srikant, co-writer and director of Bad Grandmas. Randall stars in Bad Grandmas. Now we got an impromptu giveaway thanks to Randall of his film, 37. So, again, if you want to win copies of that, just retweet about listening to Randall on Behind the Lens today, BTL Radio Show or Movie Shark D on Twitter. And we'll get in touch and get you copies. So, that's all the time we have. Until next week. I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.